Hi guys, it's Becky, and I'm going to be making another full set of jewelry with you today. For the month of February, I issued to myself a personal challenge to make a full set of jewelry that's necklace, bracelet, earrings, and a ring with every single bead box or bead bundle that I worked from or made with this month. And so that's an ongoing challenge. It's still going on for me. And so I'm going to be working with, this box is the Love Bug kit from Softflex Design Company. And I've already pulled out the beads that I want to work with, planned out what I'm doing. I know a lot of times the fun part of the video is pulling the beads out and saying, will this work with that? And will this work with this? But since I'm doing like the full set, all 4 projects, I thought I would do some groundwork and get started. And also because in addition to that, I'm trying out this one-step looper. I wanted to go ahead and make my links before most of my links, I'll do a couple of them on screen with you guys, before we got started. I will have a full review for this weekend after I've had more time to do more projects with it. But for this one, I am using the 2.25 one-step looper to make my links. I have some flush cutters for cutting my wire. I have some chain nose pliers for opening and closing things. I'm going to be doing some stringing with some beading wire, and so I've got some what are they called? Magical crimpers. This is my favorite type of crimper to use, and it works beautifully with the Softflex wire and their crimp beads. So that's another reason why I like to use it with that. So I've got those. Those are the tools that I'm using. For the materials that I'm using, I am using some pink tourmaline color Softflex. This kit came with garnet, the red garnet, but I am feeling this because I don't know if you could see this, but there's a whole bunch of pink on my mat. And I had actually intended, when I opened this up and was like, okay, I'm gonna make some stuff today, I was gonna go red and black. I was like feeling it. Sometimes red and black is just the funnest and prettiest and bestest thing. And then I just kept, my eyes and my brain and my heart just kept sliding past the red and going right to this pink. Like this soft, like almost rose quartzy kind of pink color. So I was like, you know what? I guess you gotta do what the heart wants you to do. Sometimes you're not making the things that you had in your head. You're making the things that you had in your heart. So that is what I'm making today. It's gonna be pink and black. And so for my earrings, I've got these little flower tassels. I love these flower tassels. These black textured heart beads. The pink and white check glass ladybugs. And these butterfly spacers. This is for the earrings. And I already made one, so I'll show that to you right now. So that's one of the things that I'm making. And then for the necklace, I made some links using these black rondelle beads and then these little flower bead caps on each of those. And then we've got some of these light pink faceted coin beads, and those are also going to be part of my necklace. I'm using all of the ones that I had. And again, I got 2 strands, so I probably have more of these than you do if you only got 1 strand. And we'll do one link on camera with that. And then I've got some additional links that are just the fire polish, the black fire polish beads with those. And I grabbed a couple of beads out of the Galentine's Day kit because I hadn't used these rose quartz beads yet, and they're just exactly the same color as this. So I made some links with those to kind of pad out this set and to make the necklace like just a little bit longer. So we're gonna have those all together. For the bracelet, we've got more of these check glass beads, some of these check glass hearts, a few more of these butterfly spacers, and these oval pink glass beads. So we're going to have all of those in the bracelet. And for a closure on that, I am going to be using one of these flat square beads as a button closure. I've done it before with a coin bead, but I just want to show you guys that it can be any flat bead or any bead that has a flat back. Like it can be something that has like a raised design on one side, but as long as it's got a flat back on the other side, you can do that. You can use it as a closure. So we're going to be using that in that part of the project. And I know you're saying, but Becky, wait a minute. There was a button that came in that design kit, and you're absolutely right. There was a button, and it's beautiful, and it's gorgeous. And do you know what I'm going to be doing with that? We're going to turn that into the ring that is going to bring our full set full circle. So we're going to be doing that. Did I already talk about the pink tourmaline? I think I did. But yeah, I'm going to be using this as my beading wire. Covered the tools. I've already done this once before, by the way, but then I stopped because my dog, Natalie, was like, no, I gotta go outside. You don't understand. I gotta go get in a fight with the neighbor through the fence. And so I had stopped it and I was like, I'll just start over again. So like part of this, I feel like I've done it already before, but I might not have. But that's okay, because you'll see when we're doing it, how far we go and what we get. We talked about most of the tools. The wire that I'm using. I'm using this 18 gauge gunmetal wire. It's got it from Softflex. It's in their closeout section. So it's a little bit cheaper, but it's good wire. And it's this nice dark color that doesn't detract too much from the black. It just kind of all goes together. And it'll go really nicely with these gunmetal findings that we have. I mean, we've also got gold findings, so I could have used gold wire as well. But that's what I'm using for my links. And then on the earrings, because the check glass ladybugs, 18 gauge would not fit through them, I'm using some black 22 gauge wire for that. And I'm going to do some wrapped links for that project. All right, so I'm going to set this aside for when we actually get to the earrings. And I think the first thing I want to do is get started with the ring. Let's do that first. All right, so I've got about 15-ish inches of the 18 gauge wire that I've pulled out, and I've already smoothed it out with my fingers. You can warm it up in your fingers to get ready to work with it if you would like to. And this is going to be super easy, by the way. And you can either use a ring mandrel to do this, or if you've got some sort of tube that your rings that you know fit on. Like this is a lipstick tube that is just perfect for my finger size. So I can wrap on this, or I can wrap on this. If you wrap on a ring mandrel, something that's purpose built for this, or a wooden tube, something like that, that can take some impact, you can hammer your work to help work harden your wire. If you use something else, like a lip gloss tube or something made with this hard plastic, do not hammer it because you'll shatter whatever you are wrapping on. So that's my only word of warning. You can do something if you do not have a ring mandrel, but do not hammer it. So that's just where we're gonna go from there. All right, so let's make our ring. It's super easy to make a ring with a check glass button. You just slide that sucker right on there through the shank, find the middle-ish of your wire and just begin bending it. And then pop it on your mandrel or your form, whatever you are wrapping around. I've got these marks here. That's just, it's where rings fit me. You can mark a mandrel yourself, or if you've got actual, I've got another mandrel that's actually metal and it has like the sizes marked. So that's fun, but this one is just a little bit easier for me. I'm just trying to get this to wrap all the way around here on both sides in that spot there. All right, now this is going to be the fun part because I can leave it right on here and go underneath on either side of this ring or of the button. And again, I'm holding it here, and I'm just going to chase each of these wires around the shank. I'm just going to keep going around. Until we run out of wire and we can start tucking it in underneath there. Okay, so it's getting a little hard to move it around while it's on here. So I'm going to take this off. I think these might have been on the wrong sides. You know what? It's fine. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. Because I am going to take this, bend it there. Just to make it fit better along there. Perfect. And now that it's on the other side, I'm just going to tuck this end in so it's not hanging out the side of the ring where it can get caught on things. This one, just going to tuck it around that loop right there. So I'm shortening it. It's just cleaning up my edges. This is not as round as I want it to be, so I'm probably going to pop it back on the mandrel and hammer it a little bit. But I want to get these in place first. Back on the mandrel. Right, that's where I want it to be. Whoop. And now I can do my hammering. And again, if you're using something that's not a purpose-built mandrel or something made out of wood that can take that impact, don't hammer. All right, so that's the first part of this set done. I love this method because like there are some gorgeous like check glass buttons out there, and you don't always just want them to be, you know, closure or focal. They work great for those. Sometimes you just want a big old beautiful button right there on your hand. All right, so next one is, because we're going to go from smallest to largest on our projects, next one is going to be our earring. And this is going to be, again, a fairly simple part of this project. I'm going to be stacking my beads onto my 22 gauge wire, and then we're going to be making some wrapped loops. So I'm going to put the butterfly, because it's at the top of this. We're going to make our second loop after we do the first one. So up there, and then our ladybug, and then our heart. Oop, I dropped the heart. All right, and now to make a wrapped loop, I'm going to bend this back, sort of at a 90-degree angle. And then you're going to use some round nose pliers, or I've got my bail making pliers here. They work just fine. I'm going to pull that loop all the way around, pull that off, and there it makes a curlicue, and I've got the wire pointing out at kind of a 90-degree angle from the rest of the wire. And now I can attach my dangle before I wrap my loop. And then I can use this to make sure that that loop is closed and to hold it steady while I do some wrapping. And I'm just going to wrap this short end around that stem, like maybe 3 times. I'm not pulling or anything, I'm just kind of giving a little bit of a push with my fingers to this wire. There we go. About 3 times is fine. And then I cut off my excess. And if there's like a pokey outy bit, like right here, I can take my chain nose pliers and I can tuck that in. Just with that little end so it doesn't get caught on anything. And slide my beads down. So I've been working off the spool so that I don't have that much wastage. All right, so for the rest of the wrapped loop, I'm going to give myself about 2.5 fingers width before I cut it off that spool. That's going to be enough wire to be able to do a wrapped loop with. Right. And then right up here at the top, I'm going to grasp it with my pliers, bend it over the top, and that way it will give me some of the space between the loop and the beads to wrap around. So I'm going to make my little loop, just fold that right over the top and then bring it around under there so that it makes another, it crisscrosses it. I'm going to hold on to it, wrap around until I get down to the bead. And once it's down at the bead, cut off my excess, tuck in my end, and then attach an ear wire, and I have an earring. I'm going to open up this loop on this ear wire to attach that. All right. Second part of this set is done. All right, third part is the bracelet. Like I said, I am using this pink tourmaline color craft wire. It came with red garnet, but I'm really feeling this pink tourmaline today. So we're going to be going with that. Now to make the flat square into a button for a button closure, I'm going to need my beading wire and a crimp tube. And I like these Softflex crimp tubes. They're some of the best ones I've ever used, and I use them with my magical crimper. You need 2x2 crimp tubes for it to work with these. You can see the, there it is. That's the size of wire that this works best with, 0.018 and 0.019. And the Softflex wire is 0.019. All right, so I'm going to put a crimp tube on one end of this wire. And I'm just going to be doing basic bead stringing for this bracelet. There we go. So we've got one end on here. Put the wire through this bead, then bring it back through the crimp tube. And now I'm going to adjust this. I'm just going to move it around so that when I tighten this up, I'm going to tighten my crimp so that it's right up against about the middle. It doesn't have to be the middle, it could be sort of the middle. It can be middle-ish of this bead, because that's going to give a nice flat purchase for the loop that I'm going to be making on the other end to get involved in. All right, whoop, there we go. know I said middle-ish, and it's okay if it's not, but I'm being a little bit particular. Okay. So yeah, you want your crimp like right next to the bead, right next to the flat part. You can push it up there a little bit right before you do your crimping. When you do that, you want to make sure that your crimp is centered in this concavity in here, because that's how you get your little ravioli when you squeeze it. And it crimps down these little sharp corners. And then when you rotate it and go at it from a different angle, and then open it and rotate it and go at it from a different angle, and you just keep doing this. Like, it's gonna look a little mangled, I promise you, as you go through this, but if you do it enough, you're gonna feel it when it's done and when it's ready, and you'll have a nice rounded crimp bead that doesn't have any of those sharp edges or corners on it. You can cut off the other end of your wire, or you can start stringing on beads and then cut it off. But let's go ahead and go on. I already laid out the beads in the order that I want them to be on here. I'm just starting with one of the black check glass beads, one of the check glass hearts, like that. I think I might need to cut off a little more of this excess wire because it is bumping up against that bead. There we go. That's better. And then the butterfly, and I wanted the wider part of the butterfly wings to kind of nestle into the point of the heart, like that. And that's why the butterfly bead goes right after that. Okay, and then another black heart and one of these pink ovals. Black fire polish, pink heart. I've got the hearts going in sort of opposite directions. I think we're going through the top of that before we get to the middle. And we've got our butterfly, that black fire polish bead. See, isn't this great? And then I wanted to, just for the center bead, use more of these petal bead caps, because I just had one set left after making these rondelle beads, and I was like, you know what, we'll just jazz it up. We'll make this one be the center of attention. Okay, and then the black one, and everything that I put on here is going mirrored to the way that it is here. So I'm going to go through the small end of the butterfly spacer, so the large end can be at the point of this heart. See, I've got the hearts going in opposite directions. Maybe? No, it's fine. I don't need to turn those around. They're fine just the way they are. Everything is fine. I could probably have gotten more length out of this if I was doing more of the links, like a beaded chain for the bracelet, but I didn't feel like making more links. I just wanted to make a bracelet. All right, let's check the length. And she is just about perfect. add one of these and then another of these beads just to make sure we've got enough length. Maybe that's too much. You know what? Let's do it this way. Sorry guys, I'm trying to do a fit check. And yeah, okay, that'll be enough. One more bead. Just one more black bead. I don't need this gold bead in there. There we go. And I can do a loop, and I'm going to want to make the loop long enough that it will go around this like it's a button, but not so long that it'll slip off. So I've put on a crimp bead, and I've looped this back through, and I'm going to, that's too big, test it. Is big enough. Let's make it just a little bit smaller. That is not big enough. That's why you test it. All right, I think that's going to be good. Right. So I'm going to do the same thing with the crimp. I'm going to crimp this right here with this loop. Make sure we're centered on here. And my loop has gotten bigger, it's changed size. So I'm just gonna tighten that up a little bit, but not too much because I still want this to be able to fit in here. Okay, perfect. Why are you doing this to me? I'm just gonna coil this around a little bit to make sure that we're not making our bracelet too tight. I'm just going to go ahead and crimp. Cuff my excess. All right. Now I have a bracelet. Oop. Pretty sure that fits. There we go. So you've got a ring, earrings, and a bracelet. All right, let me show you what I've been doing with this, featuring some of these guys. So I've got some large beads that I was doing this with, and I've got some smaller beads that I was doing this with. And so basically, I took my spool of wire and I just plopped several beads onto the wire. And made the first loop on each of these. And the way you do that, scooch just a little bit so you can see, is you've got this little spot here on this tool. You just put the wire through there. There's a hole on the other side that you can put the wire all the way through if you want to, but you don't really need to do that. And it wastes a little more wire if you do that. You can just set it right over here so that the edge is just past this side of the looper tool on the inside, and then when you squeeze it, it comes up this side, and this part of it, this lip here, it cuts your wire for you. So it'll give you a nice flush cut, and then it loops around. And when it loops around, the loop doesn't always meet up with this wire because that wire might move or it might have a bead on it. So someone was telling me that you could tip it back to close up your loop. And in this case, it looks like my loop is more forward towards me. So if I tip my wire up towards me, then it will close that loop a little bit better. And I've also been finding, I'm just straightening this out a little bit here because it does bend it. I'm also finding that it does a better job of making a loop when I use thicker wire like this 18 gauge versus like 22 gauge. Let me just show you real quick with this 22 gauge that I had right here. This loop is not going to be as well formed, so it didn't cut it as well, and the loop isn't as well formed. There we go. Let's retry that. See, it absolutely didn't even cut the wire. So it's twisted off to the side. It does not like thinner wire. It does like thicker wire. Something I've been finding as I've been playing around with this. Okay, so then once I get my first loop done, I'm going to cut off about a finger's width of wire from them. I just measure against my finger. I do not cut my finger. I only cut the wire, but I hold my finger next to it. And that way I can get the beads with enough wire for the second loop, and I can do it like all in a row, like at the same time, like assembly line style. And see, that's a perfect loop. It is 100% perfect. I don't have to even close it. And it's, you know, some of them are perfect, some of them I just need a little help. It's fine, but you know what? None of us are perfect. Sometimes all of us need a little help too. So, you know, I'm not too mad about any of that. I can't expect a tool to do things better than I do myself when I'm not that great at things just by myself. Okay, so the second loop is the one where I found the most issue with getting the actual loop closed. So this has a fairly large bead, and I do not want this bead to be right up next to this. I want there to be some space, because when it goes to loop up, it will shove that bead out of the way in order to make that loop, because there's all this space between where the bottom of that loop is and that bead, and if I don't make sure that there's enough space, it could break my bead. But that also, when there's a bead in the way, makes it a little more difficult for me to readjust and to get that loop going. And I just have to be okay with the fact that there's space on this. Just gonna be okay with that. With the smaller beads, it will still push the bead out of the way a little bit. I'll show you with this. See, it pushes it. Sorry, you didn't see any of that, did you? But then it doesn't close all the way on that side, it's twisted. So I do need to come back in here and do that. I've got another one that I can show you, so it's okay that that wasn't in frame. Let me do it this way, you guys can see. All right, so I'm gonna put my wire in here, and I'm gonna be using wire that you guys can see better during my my review. This is just the wire that I'm using for this project. So if you can't see what it's doing, don't worry, we're gonna have a whole review for this. But then you put this in here, there's a little bit of space there between the bead and the wire. It's not flush up against it. Then it goes through, it bends it up, and then here's the part where it moves this bead away from that. And there's just no way for me to adjust it while it's still on there, and there's a bead in the way because the back of this doesn't allow for me to move it back and forward. And you can do a little bit of adjustment side to side unless you've got a really, really big bead. But when it moved this, it also pushed against the bottom of this loop, and it made that loop a little bit shorter. So when I go in here to close this loop, to make sure that it's good, I'm also going to grab this loop because it pushed the bottom of this up. I'm just going to put the bottom of that loop back where it originally was. And that's one way to kind of have a tighter ends on these, is you have to go back in and refinesse them. And this is just something that I've learned and picked up while I was playing around with this tool and using it. Again, we'll have a more thorough review along with my little tips that I've been figuring out and that other people have told me later. In the meantime, let's put together our necklace. All right, so this necklace is going to have these 3 guys right out front, and then these coin beads going up along the sides, interspersed with the black beads, and then these rose quartz beads, and then a couple more black beads, and then these smaller rondelles, and then black beads. All right, and then I've got a couple of extra. I guess I don't know what those extras are for, but that's fine. And all I'm going to do here is use my my chain nose pliers to swing open a loop, and then I'm going to connect it to the next chain, or to the next link in the chain. So I'm going to swing this open, put my next guy on here. I'm going to pick up this next one. Do the same thing with this. You are about to be serenaded by Ellen. She is very tired, and when she gets tired, she gets a little bit whiny. Sometimes she won't settle down and have herself an afternoon snooze until I sing to her. And then she'll be like, oh, okay, now everything is right with the world. But it sounds like she might be settling down for a snooze right now without getting too whiny, which is great for her. Because I hate it when she thinks that I don't love her just because I'm not petting her. It's the worst feeling in the world, I think. If I was a dog, I'd be like, oh, nobody's petting me. Everything's the worst. Which is probably why she's the perfect dog for me, is because I get it. I get it. It's making me happy, guys. The pink and the black. It's such a great juxtaposition. It's like my 2 personalities. It was almost a joke. Maybe not quite. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I definitely still need to make some things with those ladybug beads, those ceramic ladybug beads. And the bee. There's so many things that I've wanted to make with this, but you guys know I purposefully made myself way too busy this month. And like, I'm running out of month. We got like less than a week left, less than 7 days left in this month. And I still have like a bunch of, you know what, if I don't get to all of them, then I don't get to all of them, and that's fine. And I'm going to be okay with that. But it has been a really, really fun challenge though. A really fun challenge. But yeah, next week's projects, a lot of next week's projects that I have planned are going to involve silver silk, which like does a lot of the work for you. There won't be as many like chains that I'm putting together. We won't have to string as many beads. There will probably be some wire wrapping because I like doing wire wrapping with silver silk. I like doing bead weaving with silver silk. That's a lot of fun. I'm probably not going to do that because it takes up a lot of time. And like when I do a bead weaving on silver silk project, while the video may only be like an hour or an hour and a half long, it actually takes me days to put that together, to come up with the concept, to practice it, to figure out my spacing, to actually like get it started. And then like there's usually a lot more parts to it than just that. All right, and then we've got this last guy over here on the side. So that side is done. Donezo. I was wrong. She's right over here next to my thing, huffing and puffing and being passive aggressive about it. She's gonna go sit with her back to me and look over her shoulder, be like, have you noticed how upset I am? Because she likes to do that. I love it. I love it so much, you guys. But yeah, the Softflex kits are not a monthly kit. I buy it every month because I love them. It's just a lot of fun to make with. There's usually like a really challenging part or component to it, something that might be new or something that you're like, oh, what am I going to make with this? But then they've got some really cool like individual pieces in them that you might not find anywhere else that make it really cool and unique. And again, they partner with Jesse James Beads, so you'll always get really cool bead mixes. And most of the time I will buy the bead strand that goes along with the kit, just because it usually is a lot of fun. And you know what I'm going to do? I am going to grab the lobster clasp that came in this kit. This one right here, I'm going to attach it to this side, and then I need to make a little loop on this side. I should have done one that had a larger loop. So let's actually do that. Let's make a link that has one larger loop on it. I'm just going to go ahead and use my bail making pliers for that. I'm using the 1, 2, 3rd step down. Just bending this all the way around until it touches the wire on the other side. And I'm just going to bend it back a little bit so that it makes a lollipop shape. Work hard on this very slightly by compressing it with my pliers. Put this up here, and for the other end, this is actually a little bit open. I don't know that I like that a lot. For the other end, you know what, it's all the way on the other end of my desk. I'm going to go ahead and make a loop with this. Ellen, everything's okay. Don't you worry, baby. There you go. That's going to be my little loop that the lobster clasp attaches to on the other side. So let's swing this open. And then we'll take a last look at all of these projects before the end. I'm going to swing this little loop open here. Put this guy on. And I usually just test. Yeah, it works just fine. I usually test before I attach it, the lobster clasps, to make sure that they actually work. So I don't know if you guys have ever gotten some lobster clasps, and like some of them work and some of them don't. But there we go. Let me just double check my size. That is perfect. It fits right around my neck like a choker. It is perfect for that. That is the perfect length. I'm glad I went and grabbed those extra beads from the Galentine's Day kit. And that was from the bead kit that you got from Jesse James Beads for that Galentine's Day. I hadn't used my pink beads yet, so I had those to be able to spread those out. And I've got my bracelet, and then I've got my Love Bug earrings right here. And I've got my Love Bug ring. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.